Good morning. We have a lot of great content in today's reading, Matthew 16, 17, and 18. I want to point out something for you in Matthew chapter 16 that is transitional. Jesus asks the disciples in chapter 16, who do people think I am? And they give him all the answers that they've heard. But Jesus said then, who do you say that I am? And that's when we get the good confession that Peter makes. You are the Christ, Son of the living God. This was a big deal, and it marks a turning point. Scholars even refer to this point. It starts in chapter 16, verse 21, and leading all the way up to the triumphal entry that starts, I think, in chapter 20 or 21. And they call it the way of the cross. So this transition is a different way of teaching from Jesus to the disciples particularly. He starts to help them understand what his ultimate role is, not just to be a great teacher and do all these things and heal people and amass a big crowd, because all of those things were happening. But he told them that he would have to suffer at the hands of the religious leaders, and that he would have to then lay down his life to take it up 3 days later. Jesus was pointing out to the disciples, and over the next several chapters, we start seeing this idea of selfless service, of submission to God's call on our life, even when it doesn't feel fair or just. It's part of the plan, and God has a better perspective than we do. He knows what's next. He knows what's needed. And in chapter 17, there's a really interesting little passage. It starts in verse 24. It says, and Jesus and his disciples arrived in Capernaum, and one of the collectors of the two-drachma tax came to Peter and asked, doesn't your teacher pay the temple tax? Yes, he does, he replied. When Peter came into the house, Jesus was the first to speak. And he said, what do you think, Simon? From whom do kings of earth collect duty and taxes? From their own sons or from others? From others, Peter answered. Then the sons are exempt, Jesus said. But so that we may not offend them, go to the lake, throw out your line, take the first fish you catch, open its mouth, and you will find a 4-drachma coin. Take it and give it to them for my tax and yours. And it's one of those cool stories where you feel like Jesus is just showing off a little bit. But I think it's fitting in the line of transfer of the way that Jesus is teaching his disciples. That, this isn't fair, because if anybody had an exemption coming from paying this temple tax, it would be the Son of God. But Jesus said, I don't want to offend anybody. I don't want to cause a problem. The Greek is the word that we get our word for scandal from. Jesus didn't want to make waves because there was a greater good that needed to be done. And I think to remind us that, this world isn't always fair, and God is still always in control. He sends him to the lake. Not a specific spot. He didn't tell him where to go. Hey, my favorite fishing hole, go to that place. He just says, go to the lake. Throw out your line. The first fish you catch in this giant lake is going to just happen to have a 4-drachma coin in its mouth. And you know what? I believe Peter went. I believe he threw out a line and he reeled in a fish, and lo and behold, a 4-drachma coin. Because in a world that seems unfair and out of control, God's still on the throne. He still has a plan. He's still doing his thing, which is bringing about his kingdom that we're a part of. So let's be cheerful and tell the story, the good news of Jesus Christ, who did go to the cross, who did lay down his life, and through the power of the living God took it up on the third day. Not only to give himself back a life, but to buy our life back as well. Have a great day.